Hello and welcome to Falmouth Community Television's Government Chats with Government Leaders. I'm Eileen Preston. Today we have a really special guest. You're going to be so happy you tuned in. We have the newly appointed town manager, Michael Renshaw, with us today. Mike Renshaw, thanks so much for coming.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, we're just dying to hear everything you think so far. And before you start on your thoughts and impressions, which we would love to know, I'm wondering if you could give us a little bio of yourself.
Sure, Eileen. Real quickly, so I've worked in local government for about 30 years now. Started out as a police officer way back in the early 90s, and have just really enjoyed working, being a servant of the people and working in local government for those 30 years, for the past 30 years. Grew up in Michigan, so I'm a Michigander. Lived in Detroit up until the time that I went into the Navy. 6 years in the Navy, that was a great experience. Have again worked in different city governments, county governments, primarily at the county level is my public sector service record. I've really enjoyed it. Married, have 5 beautiful kids, and the kids are now having kids of their own. So my wife Judy and I are really happy to be able to enjoy time with the grandkids. So it's just been a great career for me, and I'm just so excited to be part of the Falmouth community.
Well, welcome to Falmouth. Well, welcome to Studio A as well.
Thank you.
And you've been, I think, as far west in your working as Colorado and Arizona, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
As far south as North Carolina and Georgia. Now you can't get any further east than Cape Cod.
I'm just about as far east as I can go.
You got it. So that really speaks about your family, your willingness to move around the regions. I'm wondering if that's because, it could be because you're a Navy, but is that because you like challenge? Are you an adventurer? Are you comfortable with risk? I think it's an interesting quality.
That's a great question. So I do like challenges. I've never been afraid of a challenge and going into a new community. I also I look back over my career, and I don't think I mentioned specifically the Outer Banks experience, but when I worked and managed in North Carolina, the Outer Banks for about 6 years, that was a great experience. So I kind of looked back and kind of inventoried my career and thought, that I was really happy working on the coast in a coastal community. So when this opportunity came up, I was hoping it was going to be a good fit, and it's turned out to be just that.
Yeah, and there's special coastal communities, as you know, have really special qualities that they need to
and special challenges.
And challenges, crises. Yeah, thank you. So what are your first impressions? This is actually a two-part question. I want to know what your first impressions are of the community, the town itself, and then about the organization you're tasked with managing.
Sure. So I'll start with the community. Back in March, when I came out for the first time and kind of had my first experience with the community, I knew the community was going to be plugged in and engaged and very active and not shy about sharing opinions. For the first 3 weeks that I've been here as your new town manager, I've been not disappointed by the involvement, the engagement, that level of just that spirit of wanting to get involved and roll your sleeves up by the community. Have tried to attend just about as many of the committee meetings as I could in my first 3 weeks. So that's going to be really important for me as the new town manager, to kind of get plugged in and meet members of the different committees and boards and whatnot. So that's been a priority of mine for the first 3 weeks, is to get involved and plugged in myself. But I've not been disappointed. Everybody has been very welcoming, and certainly I've not been disappointed in the level of engagement from the community members.
And in your travels around the town itself, what are your impressions of the town itself? Because you didn't get to see much of it before you interviewed, I think, right?
I did not get to see much. My wife and I had come back after the interviews looking for housing and whatnot, but that was in March and April. So my impressions now, and again, having worked on the Outer Banks, I knew traffic was going to be an issue in the summer months. But it's taken it to on a whole nother level here in Falmouth, just with the amount of traffic. But it's a great thing, and I really want to. I've talked to the chamber president, Michael, and I'm really wanting to get engaged in the business community as well. I didn't want to exclude the business community, and I say the traffic is a good thing because it's a sign of a vibrant community, a vibrant business community, and our downtown is exceedingly vibrant, and I've been very impressed with that.
Right, you'd rather have that problem probably than the ghost town, right?
Correct,
so, yeah,
correct. So that's an impression, is just the amount of activity, the pedestrian traffic in the downtown area, the vehicle traffic, obviously. It's challenging, but it's a sign of good things, and it's a sign of a healthy, strong economy.
You've been able to hit the restaurants yet?
I have. Several of them on Main Street, I have.
Excellent. Good. We're glad. We got good seafood here.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Yes, we did.
So, you mentioned engagement, and this is a sort of a two-part question. I'm wondering about a town is only as strong as its engagement, right? I think you probably agree. So community engagement, employee engagement. Can you talk a little bit about how you want to encourage that, or how you would nourish that?
I would love to. And I spoke about this in March during the interview process. I think as a manager, it's important for the manager to get involved and engaged, and with the community itself. And I've done this in different ways, and I'm really excited about. I've got some really great ideas, I think, here in Falmouth. Trying to feedback is important, and I call it the good, bad, and the ugly. Managers and elected governing bodies, we need to have that information and that data. The points where we're doing strong, where we're performing strong, maybe those areas where we need to improve. So one of the things I'd like to do in Falmouth, and perhaps it's been done in the past, but I think it's been a while ago, I'd like to look at doing a community survey where we're kind of going out and kind of checking the temperature, so to speak, trying to find out what those service areas where we're performing really strongly and where those areas are that we need to make some improvement. And I think the best way you can do that is a really strong, kind of scientifically valid survey instrument that we're going to push out in the coming months. I'm still trying to get my arms around some of the challenges and the issues day to day, but that's one of the initiatives that I'd like to launch as a community survey to find out from the folks that live and visit, but primarily the residents of Falmouth, kind of where we're operating strongly and where there's areas for improvement. On the employee side and the organizational side, I also think likewise that it's really important for a manager and the management team to survey and find out what the employees think, really engage and solicit that feedback. My first impression is that perhaps it's not been done here in the town of Falmouth through the employee base as much as perhaps it should have been. And again, my ultimate goal is to create what I call a high performance culture in the town of Falmouth. And one of the elements of that culture is where employees feel comfortable and confident that their opinions are heard and valued, and action is going to be taken. So, some of the things that we'll be gleaning from this employee engagement survey that I'd like to do in the coming months. Some of them will be what I call low-hanging fruit, some of the things that are easy to accomplish, maybe process changes. Some of them are going to be more complicated and more complex, but we'll kind of work through that. And I'd like to create working groups once we have these survey results back, so that we can kind of sit down in small groups, myself and the employees, and kind of really encourage the employees to take ownership of some of the solutions, some of the ways to solve some of the problems. I think you get the buy-in that way from the employees if you allow and encourage them to provide input as far as the solutions to these problems. And I think that's a really powerful way to engage people. And again, I'm not saying we have a negative culture. I think we've got a very strong organizational culture, but I think just that element of the feedback and encouraging that amount of engagement from the employees on a day-to-day basis is important. So I'm excited about that initiative too.
Yeah, that sounds great. And people like to be heard, right? Mm-hmm. So that's fantastic that you're willing to listen to people's thoughts and ideas. When you were in front of the select board, you mentioned innovation. You said you even loved the word.
Yes.
And so innovation as in maybe technology. I wonder if you could flush out your ideas about innovation.
Sure. So a couple of areas that I've really, just in 3 weeks, and talking to some of the senior management staff, the assistant town manager, Peter Johnson-Staub, and Ed Centeo, the finance director, and Susan Lumping, our HR director. Mm-hmm. Those two areas, human resources and finance, I think there's a huge opportunity for the town of Falmouth to really leverage technology. And I'll give you an example. 21st century local governments, a lot of them are able to leverage information management systems, HRMS, human resource management systems. Working with Ed and Peter and Susan, we're evaluating some platforms, they're software packages, that allow the HR office, which is an office right now of 2, and they're hopeful to fill a 3rd vacancy right now. But it's
2,
small.
And how many employees do they have?
Hundreds spread across the organization. Right. So that's a challenge in itself, being short-staffed. So you have to be lean and mean, I'll say, and be efficient and effective with the staffing that you have. So this human resource management system, this software platform, will allow Susan and her staff to do a better job managing the resources, onboarding new employees, really enhance our ability to recruit. There's recruiting modules and platforms within the software. So just overall do a better job with the human resources aspect, which is hugely important to be competitive. On the Cape especially, what I'm finding, but in general, to be competitive in this current environment, you have to have those kind of systems in place. The other software platform, innovative kind of platform that we're trying to pull on board probably in the next 6 months, hopefully, is in regards to finances. Ed has done a great job at Centeo, our finance director. But in my opinion, the town is operating on really antiquated financial software platforms. And involving town accountants in that process, working with Ed and Peter and I, in bringing on a financial management system that is 21st century and automates a lot of the processes. 3 weeks into the job, I've learned that a lot of what we do is paper-based and requires wet signatures and stacks of paper going from one person's inbox to the next. I think ideally, to be efficient and effective, you want to eliminate as much of that as you can and have more automated processes. So that's what we're shooting for with these technology innovations.
Wonderful. So a lot of emphasis on technology, sort of making that an innovative town government that really moves more efficiently.
Exactly.
So you also spoke to the select board about data collection, and you talked about, for instance, not only exit surveys for employees who leave, but you also said stay surveys, so, which I thought actually I've never heard of that, where someone actually sits down and says, "Why are you staying?" I think that's lovely.
Exactly.
So talk about data collection as far as performance. How does it all work together for you?
So in my mind, and I've been successful over the years doing this. So Select Board last year, as we all know, created I think a really strong set of strategic priorities. And there's elements, and effective governance, is one of those priorities. There's elements within that those pages of the strategic plan that I think the staff, myself, and working with the management team, we need to do a better job connecting what we do on a day-to-day basis with those kind of broader, overarching, those strategic priorities that Select Board has established. So specifically with regards to retention, you mentioned the stay interviews. It's kind of a human resources buzzword, and it has been for the past couple of years. The concept of it's great to collect data and information is why people are maybe leaving the organization. But a lot of folks in the field and the industry now are flipping that on its head, so to speak. There's been kind of a paradigm shift. Continue to gather that information, but spend equally or maybe more time finding out why people are staying in the organization. And those are the stay interviews. And what is needed, though, is again, I mentioned the human resource management system. It's that platform to gather and track and be able to report on that data that's collected. So the stay interviews and the information that's gleaned from that kind of a process, recording that information, maintaining it, and then ultimately being able to report. One of the one of the issues, I think, and challenges that I've found over the past 3 weeks is that the town staff from Department of Public Works to finance, everybody is involved in a lot of great projects, capital projects throughout the town. I don't think the management team, which includes myself now obviously, is doing a good enough job, quite honestly, tracking the progress and then reporting out on the progress. Oftentimes there's expectations from a group, perhaps it went through town meeting, this project to get funded, and there's an expectation that the following year everything's going to be in the ground and up and running. That's not necessarily the way these projects come to fruition. So being able to report out on a monthly or maybe every 3 months, a quarterly basis to Select Board and the community through what I refer to as a dashboard report, I think is going to be really important. And in working with the departments to each department, here shortly I'm going to be asking them to create some metrics, some measures within each of their departments. Not a lot, 5 or 6, because you don't want too many. Kind of the key foundational services they provide, and measures that are going to allow us as a management team to find out and identify, again, where we're performing strongly and where we need to improve. Unless you're measuring something, it's very difficult to know if you're progressing. And again, tying that performance measurement system, those measures that the departments are going to be tracking on a quarterly basis, reporting that information out to Select Board and the community. So everybody is on the same page in regards to where we're at, ultimately we know where we need to go, and that's the select board strategic plan. But unless we're measuring our progress from quarter to quarter, year to year, in my opinion, we're not doing the best, most efficient, effective way of reaching that end goal if we're not tracking our progress throughout the whole process.
That's fantastic. Okay, very interesting. So you're making me think about management styles and techniques. And I'm wondering if you have a favorite manager from your 30 years, I think probably. What was it about the quality of that manager that made you think that works for me?
That's a great question. So I do actually. I would consider this person a mentor, and it was actually I was going through my master's program, and this is back in Arizona. I was a police officer at the time. In the city that I was a police officer in, Glendale, Arizona, the city manager at the time was actually one of my professors in my MPA, my Master's of Public Administration course. So at any rate, I had a lot of time to interact with him outside of class because his office was in the same building that our office operated out of. It was when I was a police officer. So spending time with the city manager, this person's title was city manager, and kind of learning from him. And I think that's where, looking back on it over the past 30 years, I think that's where I've really gotten the sense, the importance, and the value of engagement and placing a value and showing the employees that you place a value in them through that engagement process. And I mentioned, one example, the survey, just day to day, just spending time, just walking down the hall, poking your head in the door, I think is important too. I mean, that goes a long ways towards, again, showing that you value what the employees are doing, showing that you care, and then always being able and willing to listen to the feedback. Again, like I said in March, the good, bad, and the ugly, the things that we're doing well, the things that we need to improve on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so he cared a lot.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
Okay, good. What is Mike on the mic?
Oh, that's a great question. So I mentioned our HR director, Susan Lumping. I just gave her a copy of an edition of Mike on the Mic. So Mike on the Mic, I started that about 4 years ago. It's basically what I use it as a communication tool. And I've used the example ladder up and ladder down communication style. The information that I have from the town manager's office to distribute throughout the organization, that's important. But I think for any manager and for a management team, you also want the information coming up the ladder as well. So I call it the boots on the ground, the people working in the field, in the offices, at the division level. So Mike on the Mic is it ultimately turned into a every other week electronic newsletter, so to speak. I used it to share information about projects and updates and what's kind of going on in the organization with the elected body, the governing body. In this case, it will be select board. We haven't started it yet, but I'm probably going to use the same phrase, Mike on the Mic. It's M-I-K-E on the M-I-C. Because I think it kind of illustrates and kind of paints that visual of what it's all about, getting information out and distributing it. So everybody in the organization knows what's going on. Folks in the Department of Public Works know what's happening in the town accountant's office and vice versa.
Right, awesome, that's wonderful. So I'm going to give you've been very generous with your time, your Mike on the Mic moment. And I just want you to tell us what you think about Falmouth or what you hope for Falmouth.
So my impressions so far, like I said earlier, I've not been disappointed. Everything that I thought Falmouth would be, it has turned out to be. Just the level of engagement and the care and concern. We're not always going to agree on end solutions, but I'm always going to encourage people to reach out. I think accessibility is very important in my position as well. And I'm going to say this. The door open policy, my door is always open, literally. So if folks in the community ever want to visit with me, please do. Call perhaps first. My cell phone is on my website because I think it's important for people not to have to go through layers to get to the town manager. So I put my cell phone on my website. So if folks go to Falmouth, ma.gov, they'll be able to find the town manager's website. It is posted right on that right-hand corner of the site. So that's what I'm encouraging. I'm encouraging people to stay committed, stay engaged. There's a lot of great things ahead for the town of Falmouth, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you so much, Mike Renshaw.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Soon you'll be dropping your R's like the rest of us.
That's right, that's right.
Welcome, thank you so much. And I hope you'll come back and keep us engaged
I would
too.
love to. I
Mike
would
on the
love to come
mic
back.
here.
I would
All
love to
right,
come back.
wonderful. Thanks very much for tuning in, you as well. And let's all keep engaged in Falmouth. Thank you.